What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was: the whole say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. I once got a job partly because of my honest answer to this: I need to know why I am doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. Edit, wow. Thanks for the gold and silver. RIP my inbox. I interviewed a girl once and she said honestly, cake. I can never say no to it. She was so genuine and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person, and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while and said, gosh, I'm sorry, there are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers, not a perfect answer, just people that seemed comfortable and normal. Lol. As someone who interviews hundreds of people each year, this question stumps almost every person asked. The worst responses are, I have trouble being on time, I'm argumentative, I don't get along with. I also don't think disguising strengths as weaknesses is a good idea either. The best response I think I have heard, besides not being able to ride a unicycle, is, I make mistakes, but I am only human. I am sure I will make some mistakes along the way learning the ins and outs of this position, but as soon as I know I made a mistake, I try to fix it immediately and make sure it doesn't happen again. Just my 2 cents. Recruiter here, just be completely honest. The hiring manager is looking for an honest answer because those who can't identify their areas of weakness aren't working on them. Edit, getting lots of feedback here. The weakness question is being asked in a workplace, and so your answer should pertain to the workplace, not your personal life. Saying, well, I just can't resist brownies. That's not an answer as it pertains to the workplace. The interviewer is both assessing your ability to reflect on personal development as well as your self-awareness within the workplace. They want to know if after they hire you, you have the social maturity to keep work at work, and home at home. They're also trying to gauge whether or not you're going to be a future pain in their ass. So yes, give an honest answer, but still an answer as it relates to your profession. If you need an office reference, think how would Jim answer this question? Not how would Dwight answer this question? Here's a good example. Sometimes I get distracted at work, so I've recently started using an app to regulate my screen time. It's honest, it's related to the workplace, it's short and concise, it's a real issue, it shows that you're working on your issues. It also shows that you're a chill ass dude because you didn't start talking about how you care too much or some fake bullshit. See what I mean? An actual weakness you do have. And stop with the I'm perfectionists, I'm too helpful and all that jazz. No one believe it anymore, you're not fooling anyone, and some might think you're taking them for stupid people. Not a great thing to convey. Also, usually, you have 2 weeks of probation period. They will see your actual weaknesses during that time. If you weren't honest during your interview, that won't help building trust between you and management. Not a good thing. So talk about an actual weakness you have, and what you're doing to improve on it. And it has to be something related to the job you're seeking. Am I the only one who thinks this is an unreasonable, unfair, asshole question to ask in a job interview? You're supposed to sell yourself and put your best foot forward, often for the first impression, and someone is asking you to criticize yourself in some meaningful way where you balance on a knife edge between spoiling your chances and wow, what a cop-out, they must be dishonest. God forbid I actually name a character flaw I have and they ask how I mitigate it. It wouldn't be a character flaw I still have if I hadn't already fully figured that out. So thanks, asshole. As a professional recruiter, I rarely ask this question. But if I do, I'll get annoyed by canned answers like I'm a perfectionist or workaholic. Why? Because it's a self-serving stock answer that leads me to distrust the rest of the answers I'm getting. I'd rather hear something genuine that actually tells me something about that person. Something like, my workspace tends to get messy, so I really have to focus on keeping an organized workspace. It helps me to prioritize. Or, prioritizing can be a challenge for me, so I have to pay particular attention to that, like making a list in the morning or asking my boss what his/her most important items are for the day. The weakness can be anything as long as it's not a major character flaw or obvious deal breaker. The key is to state your weakness and immediately address how you've been working on improving it. Include any success stories or progress you've made so far, and your weakness becomes a testament to your self-awareness and willingness to improve and learn. Example, I struggle to communicate clearly with my coworkers over email or IM. I find that I'm often misinterpreted and the problem becomes more difficult to solve because of the misunderstanding. To address this, I have been working with my trusted coworker to proofread important emails. I've also been asking my coworkers for help in pointing out when I'm being unclear. Finally, I memory reading my emails before sending to catch any obvious errors. If the email is important or I'm emotionally invested, I'll wait an hour, reread and make any necessary changes, and then send. My co-workers have remarked on my improvement and I feel much more confident communicating over email. I'm late to this, but I just have to say, this is the worst fucking question to ask in an interview and accomplishes absolutely nothing of use, and the answers here show that. No matter what people say, it could be taken as a red flag, a humble brag, too brushing off, or a cop-out. The answer that the interviewer wants to hear is totally arbitrary, and a good answer to one interview is totally off-putting to another. The best answer is rarely genuine. If you are an interviewer who asks this question, please stop. It does nothing but trip people up and serves no use in the decision-making process. My strategy for if they ask me to describe a weakness is to actually describe a strength in a poor light, and then tell them how I solve it. Like, I'm really well organized and keep good records, but being perfectly organized sometimes takes up extra time that could be used on something higher priority. I combat this by constantly self-checking that I'm not overly wasting time with organization. Another similar is like, I'm very detail-oriented and take great pride in my work, which can lead to perfectionist-type attributes. While that can be a good thing, if seeking perfection it can send a person off task or push them past deadlines. So I do my best to be cognizant of keeping a balance between quality of work and efficiency. The standard approach is to provide a weakness that can be fixed/taught and obviously, is not a core competency in the job. Also, follow up with how you are dealing with the weakness. For example, if you are applying to be a financial analyst, don't say you suck at Excel since you'll be dealing in spreadsheets from day one. A good answer may be, I'm proficient in Excel and use it to analyze data every day and generate reports. Doing that, I'm quite comfortable with pivot tables, lookups, index/match, and conditional statements. Having said that, I'm currently studying up on VBA because I feel like I can really take my report creation and Excel skills and efficient to a higher level by taking the next step and getting into writing VBA code. This answer obviously won't work if one of the criteria is actual VBA. I said I ask a lot of questions and like to make sure I really understand things before I go off on my own, which might be annoying. They loved it because it's a job that relies on lots of communication and has a really steep learning curve, so those things aren't necessarily a detriment. Do some research on the job. What they ask for in a listing is a great start, and see if you have any drawbacks related to that. It'll show that you did some preparation but also that you understand your limits. For instance, they stress organization. You might say you love to reorganize your house, but once you reorganized your kitchen and lost all the serving spoons. They want someone who knows the coding language fluently. You might say you had trouble in the class in college and had to retake it, but the second time something clicked and you became a tutor because you aced it when you took it again. I am a bit late, so hopefully this reaches 1 or 2 people. So, I have worked with a lot of HR people and they are looking for how you overcame the weakness, not your actual weakness. The "I am always overprepared" line is used so much. Most of the time the greatest weakness question is not even used anymore because it is so rehearsed. The way to shine is during the interview is the "do you have any questions?" part. The best 2 questions you can ask are at this point: are there any questions you feel I did not answer fully at this time? This gives you a second chance to answer questions they doubt you on. Then the second is based on my answers: do you feel I am qualified for this job? Expect an honest answer, but at least you will know where you stand.